Okay, spectral position depend on the relative position of excited state with respect to ground state. For example, when the excited state is shifted to the right, the most intense transition comes from here. The transition begins at the center of the V equals 0, proceeds vertically, and ends near the left wall of the potential energy curve. This transition is the most intense transition. And transition below this level and higher this level, intensity becomes weaker progressively. So we obtain bell-shaped spectral band. But when the potential energy curve does not shift, the most intense transition comes from V equals 0 to V equals 0. This is the most intense transition. And transition to V equal 1 and V equal 2, intensity becomes weaker progressively. So we obtain half bell-shaped spectral band. Now I will compare the vibrational energy level of harmonic potential energy curve and the anharmonic potential energy curve. In harmonic potential energy level case, the vibrational level are equally spaced. The vibrational spacing is constant indefinitely, but in anharmonic potential energy curve, the vibrational spacing becomes smaller progressively. This is the dissociation limit. When the energy level approaches dissociation limit, the vibrational spacing approaches 0. And above the dissociation limit, the energy level is true continuum. This is the difference. So, if we assume that this is the ground state and this is the excited state, this is dissociation limit. Before the dissociation limit, the transition terminates on the discrete vibrational level. So we have obtained discrete line. When the transition approaches the dissociation limit, the peaks are crowded. Peak to peak distance becomes smaller because the vibrational spacing becomes smaller. And above the dissociation limit, the spectrum is continuous. So this is the dissociation limit. So below the dissociation limit, we have discrete vibrational peak. Above the dissociation limit, we obtain continuous spectrum. This is the typical spectrum obtained from the anharmonic potential. And there's one important case to consider. This is anharmonic potential. This is repulsive potential. In repulsive potential, there is no well in which molecule is confined. In this case, all the vibrational level is continuous. All the vibrational level is continuous. So assume that this is the ground state. The absorption spectrum looks like this. spectrum is just continuous. There is no definite vibrational peak is shown. Just continuous spectrum is obtained when the excited state is repulsive potential. This is a repulsive potential, and this is anharmonic potential. In anharmonic potential, we have two regions. Discrete absorption peak is shown, and continuous absorption spectrum is shown. But in repulsive potential, we have continuous spectrum. And there is a case in which anharmonic potential intersect with repulsive potential. So there's a special case in which anharmonic potential meets with repulsive potential. This is ground state. Now, in this point, anharmonic potential intersect with the repulsive potential. Is a vibrational level, and this is the dissociation limit. And above dissociation limit, we have continuum. In this level, there is a phenomenon called curve crossing. Occurred. When the molecules are excited to this vibrational level, the molecule cross over to the repulsive state, and the molecules are dissociated following this curve. So this process called curve crossing occurred at this vibrational level. This point is called curve crossing point. Now the spectrum looks like this. Below the curve crossing point, we obtain normal discrete vibrational peak is shown. So below the crossing point, we obtain discrete vibrational peak is shown, and above the curve crossing point, we also observe discrete vibrational peak is shown. And above the dissociation limit, we have continuous spectrum. And near the crossing point, we also have continuous spectrum. Why? As I said before, this is the repulsive state. As I said before, the energy level is continuous for repulsive state. The energy level is a continuum for repulsive state, and at this point, the curve crossing occurs. When the molecules are excited to this vibrational level, the molecule can cross over or couple to this repulsive state, in which the energy is continuous. So when you excited the molecule in this level is coupled to this continuum energy level, which is continuous. So in this region, we observe continuous spectrum. So without this curve crossing, the spectrum looks like this. Without this curve, spectrum looks like this. But with this curve crossing, this continuous spectrum are embedded in the discrete spectrum. This one is a signature of curve crossing. Without this curve crossing, this was replaced by discrete level must be shown. But with this curve crossing, this one are replaced by continuous spectrum are embedded. Continuous spectrum are embedded between discrete energy level. So when you see the continuous spectrum are embedded between discrete energy level, it means that in this region, curve crossing occurs. Now, what is the dissociation energy? Without curve crossing, the dissociation energy may be this one. To dissociate the molecule, we need this amount of energy is needed to dissociate the molecule without this curve. But with this curve, only this amount of energy is needed to dissociate the molecule. Why? When this amount of energy is needed, is supplied, the molecule are excited to this vibrational level. The molecule immediately cross over to this repulsive state. And the molecule follow this potential energy curve and go to R infinity. So molecule are dissociate. So only this amount of energy is needed to dissociate the molecule. So this process is called pre-dissociation. This amount of energy is not needed in this process. Only this amount of energy is needed to dissociate the molecule. Without this curve, this amount of energy is needed to dissociate the molecule. But with this curve crossing, only this amount of energy is needed to dissociate the molecule. So this dissociation is called pre-dissociation. How do you know pre-dissociation occurs? You can observe in the spectrum. The one set of continuous spectrum is embedded in the discrete spectrum. Okay. Let's move on to another topic. Now consider 1,3-butadiene. I'm gonna use sp2 hybridization for each atom to explain sigma orbital, and the unhybridized p orbital, 4p orbital remains, and 4p unhybridized p orbital interacts with each other to form 4 molecular orbitals. And electrons occupy up to this fly. This molecular orbital is called HOMO, and this molecular orbital called LUMO. And with this configuration, I can draw potential energy curve. This potential energy curve corresponds to this configuration. And when I irradiate UV visible light, the electrons in the HOMO orbital excited to promoted to LUMO orbital. So electron configuration is changed. So with this electron configuration, we can draw another potential energy curve. Right? But I want to say that with this configuration, we must draw 2 potential curves, not single one. This is the today's topic. With this configuration, give rise to 2 potential energy curves, not single one. We must draw 2 potential curves. The potential curve which is higher is called singlet, lower is called triplet. This is our main topic, today's topic. And actually, triplet states consist of three states. Three degenerate states. So actually, this configuration gives rise to four potential curves. Single state and triplet state. Triplet state consists of three degenerate curves. This is our main topic. Why? Because the electron in home orbital have two orientations, spin up and spin down. Two states is possible. Similarly, electron in room orbital has two possibilities, spin up and spin down. So we have total of four combination is possible. So actually this configuration consists of four states, and I'm going to classify four states into a group of three states and a group of one state. I'm going to classify into two groups. This group of three states is called triplet. This single state remaining is called singlet. This is our main topic. This one is related to spin. So I'm going to review quantum mechanics of spin first. So what is spin? As you know, spin is a vector. The magnitude square of spin has satisfied following formula. And the spin has G component restricted to satisfy the spin angular moment satisfy this formula. For electron, spin quantum number is 1/2. So I can draw the spin angular momentum vector like this. What is the length of this vector? When you substitute 1/2 for S, it is 3/2 H bar. When you substitute S for 1/2. And for spin up, for S equal 1/2, MS has two values, 1/2 or minus 1/2. So for up spin, the G component is 1/2 H bar, right? So we can calculate the angle between G axis and the spin vector. This is approximately 54 degrees. Similarly, for downspin, the angular momentum vector pointed in this direction. This angle is also 54 degrees. So we can also calculate the angle between two spin vector, upspin and downspin. It is approximately 70 degrees, approximately. This is our quantum mechanics for single spin. Now I'm gonna talk about the system with two electrons. Now, two electrons, system of two electrons. The electron has spin vector S1. Second electron has spin. For electron, this is fixed. Spin quantum number is 1/2. So magnitude is fixed. Square root 3/2 H bar is fixed because spin quantum number is fixed. So the magnitude of this one is square root 3/2 H bar. Two electrons moves. So now I'm going to define large S. Large S is a sum of small s1 plus small s2. So now I want to ask, what is the magnitude of large s? Total spin angular momentum vector, which is the sum of small s1 and small s2. The length of small s1 and small s2 is square root 3 over 2 h bar. But even if we know the length of this vector, we cannot tell the magnitude of s vector because the length of total spin vector s depends on the angle between two vectors, theta. But we can calculate the maximum value and minimum value of s. When theta equals 0, parallel, what is the maximum value of s magnitude? When theta is 0, the maximum value is square root 3 over h bar. This is the maximum value. What is the minimum value of s? It is called anti-parallel case. When theta is 180 degree, it is anti-parallel, so s vector may be 0. So in classical mechanics, the magnitude of total spin angular momentum vector between 0 to square root 3 h bar. In classical mechanics, the angle between two vectors can take any arbitrary value in classical mechanics. But in quantum mechanics, the theta is quantized. It cannot take any arbitrary value. It is a key difference between classical mechanics and quantum mechanics. For example, let's take an example of theta equals 0. Actually, according to quantum mechanics, this value is impossible for quantum mechanics. Why? As I said before, in quantum mechanics, angular momentum squared must satisfy this formula. But when angle between two spin angular momentum vector is 0, the magnitude is square root 3 h bar. So this one is equal to 3 h bar square. But we cannot find s which satisfy this equation, whether s is integer or half integer. Whether s is integer or half integer, we cannot find the solution of this equation which satisfy this equation. So this magnitude of angular momentum is impossible in quantum mechanics. How about this one? This one is okay. Why? The magnitude of s is 0. So this is okay. Why? In this case, this is 0. We can find quantum number s which satisfies this equation. What is s? S equals 0. So this magnitude is okay because when s equals 0, the magnitude satisfies this equation. So this magnitude is okay in its s equals 0. But this magnitude is not okay. This is impossible in quantum mechanics because we cannot find the quantum number s which satisfies this equation. And we find another angle which satisfies this equation. The angle is 70 degrees. When angle is 75 degrees, the magnitude of this one is square root h bar. The length of this vector is square root 3 over 2 h bar, and and the angle between two angles is 70.54 degree, the magnitude of this vector is known to be square root of 2h bar. Then we can find quantum number s, which satisfies this equation. What is s? The s is 1. So this magnitude of angular momentum is possible because we can find the solution for s, which satisfies this equation. So with summary, when two spinning electron spin are combined, two possible angles, theta equal 180 degree and theta equal 7.54 degree. This is possible. In this case, magnitude of s equal 0. In this case, magnitude of s equal square root h bar. In this case, quantum number s equal 0. In this case, quantum number s equal 1. This is our result. Okay. When two electrons move, two spin moves, the angle between two spin angular momentum are constrained by two values, 180 degree or 70 degree. This is the result from quantum mechanics because all the angular momentum must satisfy this equation. Now I'm going to visualize this situation. This one is called singular state. This one is called triplet state. I'm going to visualize singular state. In singular state, the angle between two spin vectors is 180 degree. I'm going to visualize singular state. In singular state, one electron in up spin, the other electron are down spin, and angle between two spin vectors is 80 degree, 180 degree. This is the singular state. This drawing corresponds to this singular state. The quantum number for this singular state is s equal 0. Now move on to triplet state. In its angle between two spin vectors 70 degree. In singular state, one spin up, the other spin is down. But in this case, S2 directed in this direction, not direction, in this direction. And angle is 7.45 degree. This one is called triplet state. Angle between two spin vectors is 70 degree and spin quantum number is 1. Now I can draw another triplet state in which angle between two spin vectors is 70 degree. Another triplet state is this one. Two spins, both spins are in up spin, and angle is still 70 degree. This S1, S2. In this case, the common point is that angle between two spin vectors 70 degree. In this case also, angle between two spin vectors 70 degree. In this case, both spin are spin up. Anyway, this is also triplet state. And we can draw another triplet state in which both spin are down and angle between two vectors is still 70 degree. So this is total spin vector. So this is also triplet state. And spin quantum number is s equal 1. So length of this vector is equal to length of this spin vector because angle between two spin is same. The length is still square root 2 h bar. Square root 2 h bar. Length is same. And this is S1. This is g-axis. When I project this spin vector into g direction, when I project this spin vector into g direction, the g component is h bar. When I project this spin vector into g direction, this one is minus h bar. The s vector is perpendicular to g direction. So when I project s vector into g direction, it's 0. Right? So given s equal 1, we can define quantum number ms. For this state, ms equal 0 because g component of angular momentum is 0. So angular momentum quantum number ms equal 0. In this case, g component of angular momentum is h bar. So ms equal plus 1. And in this case, g component of angular momentum is minus h bar. So ms equal minus 1. Do you remember p orbital has L quantum number equal 1. P orbital has 3 components. For given L, ml equal 1, 0, minus 1. It's similar situation. Given s equal 1, there are 3 possible values. 1, 0, minus 1. For the triplet state, composed of 3 states, s equal 1. This is ms equal 1, ms equal 0, ms equal minus 1 state. How about this one? In this case, the s equal 0. So ms must be 0. It is similar that s orbital. When s orbital, L equal 0. So ml must be 0. It is similar situation to s orbital. So anyway, we return to original slide. When electron in home orbital is promoted to room orbital, there are 4 states is possible. 1 state is called single state. 3 state is called triplet state. Single state, theta equal 180 degree. Triplet state are consist of 3 states in which theta is 70.54 degree. Okay. In general, triplet state is lower than single state. I'm going to explain why triplet state is lower than single state later. Anyway, remember that energy level of triplet state is lower than the single state. And for short, for convenience, I'm going to draw triplet state as a single curve. But remember that this single curve are consist of 3 lines. Just remember that. Okay. So anyway, for this configuration, when you irradiate, this is ground state. When you irradiate UV visible light electrons in the home orbital excited to room orbital. That it means that electrons in the ground state can be either excited to singular state or triplet state. So I'm gonna denote this one is called S1 and T1. And this ground state, electrons are paired. So in this ground state is called S0 state. And on each vibrational level, we have a set of vibrational level. On singular state, we have a set of vibrational level. On triplet state, we have set of vibrational level. So, in this potential energy diagram, when UV visible light is applied, molecule in the ground state make a transition to singular state or triplet state. So I'm going to show you the absorption spectrum like this. Now according to Boltzmann statistics, virtually all the molecule is in the we call zero state. Why? According to Boltzmann statistics, the probability that molecule have at energy E is proportional to exponential minus 0 over kBt. And in normal condition, this is the vibrational energy, this is the thermal energy. Normally, E is much larger than kBt. So according to this condition, all the molecule is in the we call zero state. So absorption originate virtually from we call zero state. So when UV visible is absorbed, the molecule can make a transition to S0. But there are a series of vibrational levels. The molecule can make a transition here, 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 here. So you see a series of vibrational peak is obtained. This peak corresponds to S0 to S1 transition. And the molecule can make a transition to triplet state. This transition is allowed. But as I said before, triplet state is lower than the S1 state. So peak shown is here. This corresponds to S0 to T1, right? But it is a long wavelength region. Why? Because triplet state is lower than the singular state. So it is shown in the long wavelength region. But please note that the intensity is different. S0 to S1 transition is stronger than the S0 T1 transition. S0 T1 transition is weaker compared to the S0 S1 transition. Why? This transition is spin forbidden. Why? Consider atomic spectroscopy. This is 1s orbital, 2s orbital, and 2p orbital. Assume that electron is 1s orbital. When UV visible is applied, electron in 1s orbital make a transition to 2p orbital. But the spin state, if the electron in a 1s orbital is of spin state, after transition, the spin state remains. The spin state does not change. Spin state is preserved during transition. Spin state does not change. To change the spin state, the magnetic momentum must change. Because the electron with the spin behaves like a tiny magnetic bar. The magnet has a magnetic moment. To change the direction of magnetic bar, the magnetic bar or magnetic moment must interact with magnetic field. Light is a electromagnetic field. So light has electric field and magnetic field. To change the direction of spin, it means that you should change the direction of magnetic moment of the spin. To change the magnetic direction of magnetic moment, the magnetic moment should interact with the magnetic field of the field. But the interaction with the magnetic field with magnetic moment is much weaker than the interaction with electric field and electric dipole moment. So this process, interaction with magnetic field and magnetic moment, is very, very weak. So normally this interaction is ignored. So the spin direction is not normally does not change. So in this regard, this transition is forbidden because in this transition, single state changed to triple state in which spin state is changed. So this transition is normally forbidden. So intensity is very, very weak compared to the singlet to singlet transition. Now, so this is singlet. This is singlet. For a moment, I'm gonna ignore triple state. So molecule initially in the V equal 0 state absorbs UV visible light and make a transition to high vibrational level of S1 state. In the first step, the molecule in the high vibrational level cascade down the vibrational level. This is the first process to occur. This process is called vibrational relaxation. The molecule rapidly relaxes back to the V equal 0 state of S1 state. And the molecule in the V equal 0 state, the pathway, there are three possible pathways. In first step, the molecule return back to the S0 state, emitting photon. The molecule in the V equal 0 state return back to S0 state, emitting a photon. This process is called fluorescence. In fluorescence, spin state does not change, singlet to singlet, and emitting a photon. This is the first pathway for molecule in the V equal 0 state. And second pathway is that the molecule does not emit a photon and return to S0 state. This process is called internal conversion. What is the common point with fluorescence and internal conversion? The spin state does not change. In fluorescence and internal conversion, spin state does not change from S1 to S0. But difference is that in fluorescence, photon is involved, but in internal conversion, photon is not involved. The pathway is that, as I said before, there is a triple state. The molecule cross over to triple state. This process is called intersystem crossing. Intersystem crossing involves the change in spin multiplicity, singlet to triplet. What's the difference between internal conversion and intersystem crossing? In internal conversion, spin multiplicity is preserved, singlet to singlet in internal conversion. But intersystem crossing, spin multiplicity change from singlet to triplet. So this is a three pathway. When the molecule in the V equals 0 state. And the molecule in the T1 state rapidly relax back, relax down, relax step down the V equals 0 state of the triple state. This process is again called vibrational relaxation. So now molecule in the V equals 0 state. Now molecule in the 0 state experience two pathway. The molecule in the V equals 0 state emit a photon and return to S0 state. This process is called phosphorescence. Do you remember fluorescence? What's the difference between fluorescence and phosphorescence? In fluorescence, spin multiplicity is preserved, singlet to singlet. But in phosphorescence, spin multiplicity change, triplet to singlet, triplet to singlet. This one, singlet to singlet. As I said before, this process involved in the change in spin multiplicity. So this process is spin forbidden. So this process very, very slowly. Because this process is actually spin forbidden process. And second pathway is that the molecule in the V equals 0 state of triple state return to S0 without emitting a photon. Return back to single state without emitting a photon. This process is called, again, intersystem crossing. So there are 5 possible pathways that return to singular state. Okay. So for summary, this is ground state, which is denoted as singlet 0. This is a singlet state, excited singlet state. This is excited triple state, and there is a vibrational level on singlet state, and there is also vibrational level on triple state. And this is the ground state of vibrational level 0. For absorption peak, this peak corresponds to this peak. So we can assign this band as S0 to S1. And we can also observe this peak. This band is here. We can assign this peak as S0 to T1. Peak intensity is small compared to this one because this process is spin forbidden process, in which spin multiplicity change. Now this is absorption. Now I'm going to talk about emission. When the molecule are excited to this level and the molecule relax back, cascades steps down to the ground vibrational level, and the molecule in the V equals 0 level now emits photon. Here, here, here. This process is called fluorescence. The fluorescence spectrum looks like this. This is the fluorescence. The wavelength is shifted to the right compared to the absorption peak. Why? Because the molecule does not emit from this level. The molecule lose energy through vibrational relaxation and emit photon from here after losing energy. So the wavelength increase. So this is the absorption peak, this emission peak. Emission peak shift to the right. The wavelength increase. We can assign this peak as S1 to S0. Similarly, the molecule here make a crossover to the triplet state and undergoes vibration relaxation and reside in V equal 0 state. And the molecule can also make a transition to S0, emitting a photon. This process is called phosphorescence. Phosphorescence peak is here. So how can you assign this band T1 to S0? This process is also spin forbidden. So it proceeds very, very slowly. Okay, this is a photochemistry. Now for second session. This is a nitrogen-14 nucleus. As you know, the internal structure of nitrogen-14 nucleus is known. Inside the nitrogen-14 nucleus, we have 7 protons and 7 neutrons. But you know, when the neutron is discovered, it is discovered 1932. So this model was built only after 1932. But the question is then, what's the model before 1932, when the neutron is not discovered? Before 1932, the model for nitrogen-14 looks like this. There are 14 protons inside the nucleus, and 7 electrons are inside the nucleus. This is the model before 1932. You might think that this is very strange, that electrons are inside the nucleus, but it is not actually strange at that time, because when nucleus undergoes beta decay, electrons are emitted from the nucleus. So it is not strange that electrons are inside the nucleus. Anyway, this is the model adopted before 1932. But and the quantum mechanics developed this model. As the quantum mechanics developed, this model is wrong. It's discovered. Why? The proton spin quantum number of proton is 1/2. As you know, the spin quantum number of electron is 1/2. Both of them are fermion. And how many particles in the inside the molecule? 21. Odd number. According to quantum mechanics, odd number of fermion, this is a composite particle, which are composed of 21 particles of fermion. And according to quantum mechanics, when the odd number of fermion, the composite particle behaves like a fermion. According to quantum mechanics. But 1931, Raman spectrum was measured of N2. And they discovered that according to the Raman spectrum of N14 nitrogen, the nitrogen nucleus must be, according to Raman spectrum, must be boson. So it is a clear contradiction between theory and experiment. So 1 year later, 1932, Chadwick discovered neutron, and the model changed. According to this model, the nucleus nitrogen has 7 protons and 7 neutrons, and the neutron spin quantum number is 1/2. So neutron is also fermion. Then how many particles is inside the nucleus? Now 14. Even number. So when even number fermion is inside the composite particle, it behaves like a boson. So we can explain with this model, we can explain the Raman spectrum. So this is our framework. So today we are going to explain how we figure out, according to Raman spectrum, the 14 nitrogen is boson. Is today's topic. It's very, very interesting. How do we know that, according to Raman spectrum, nitrogen 14 is boson? In the next slide handout, you can see the Raman spectrum. It is copied from our textbook. This is the rotational Raman spectrum of nitrogen 14. Do you see the interesting pattern in this Raman spectrum? There's a striking pattern in this Raman spectrum. So this is the Rayleigh scattering. And as you know, the selection rule for rotational Raman spectrum, delta J equal plus minus 2. So you can see the assignment on each peak. So 2, 4, 3, 5, 4, 6, 5, 7. What is the interesting in this spectrum? In this spectrum, odd number to odd number transition. This is even number to even number transition. Intensity is large, small, alternating. Even number to even number transition is larger than the odd number to odd number transition. Raman spectrum is alternating with even number transition is larger than the odd number transition. This is the clue that nitrogen N is boson. So this is the Raman spectrum of nitrogen 14. And then scientists perform another experiment with nitrogen 15. Nitrogen has isotope. Now in this time they perform another experiment with nitrogen 14. Rayleigh scattering. In this case, spectrum looks like this. What's the difference between nitrogen 14 and nitrogen 15? They also show alternating pattern. But there's a big difference. In this case, odd number to odd number transition is larger than the even number to even transition. It is opposite sign, opposite weighting. It means that nitrogen 14 is fermion. And finally, they perform this experiment. Nitrogen 14, nitrogen 15. What do you expect? Raman spectrum. In this case, no alternating. When two nitrogen is different, they show no alternating pattern. This is their result. So today and tomorrow, we are going to show why this alternating pattern corresponds to indicates that nitrogen 14 is fermion, and why this pattern with even to even transition gives larger intensity, gives evidence that nitrogen 14 is ozone. This is today's topic. Okay. So the conclusion is here. I'm going to show you that finally is that consider the molecule H2. The molecules are rotating. Now the molecule are consists of two hydrogen nucleus. The hydrogen nucleus has two angular momentum. Rotational angular momentum and spin angular momentum. The quantum number which designates spin angular momentum is I. The spin quantum number to represent rotational angular momentum is J. The nucleus has two kinds of angular momentum. Rotational angular momentum, in which the molecule rotates about the center of mass. This angular momentum is designated as J. As you know, the rotational energy depends on quantum number J, and energy is J plus A. In this case, this is the rotational energy, in which the nucleus rotates about the center of mass. In this case, the angular momentum quantum number J refers to the rotational angular momentum of this nucleus. Rotation about the center of mass. And the nucleus has spin. So spin angular momentum has quantum number I. The electron has spin, just as electron has spin quantum number, nucleus also has spin quantum number I. For nucleus, I equal 1/2. So similarly, two nucleus moves around. So we can define total spin quantum number I, which is the sum of I1 plus I2, similar to electron. The spin quantum number of I1 equal to 1/2, I2 equal 1/2. So exactly same as electron. What is the possible value of I? I has 0, 1. This one is called singular state. This one has triple, exactly same as electrons. Now, interesting finding, surprising finding is that, as I said before, the rotational energy depends on rotational quantum number J. I'm going to draw the energy level, rotational energy level. This is J equals 0, equal 1. This is the rotational angular momentum. And in addition to rotational angular momentum G, we have spin angular momentum I, which have two possible values, 0 and 1. 0 refers to singlet, 1 refers to triplet. We can visualize singlet and triplet. For singlet, which looks like this. Up spin, down spin, angle between two spin is 180 degree. For triplet, one speed is spin up, the other is down, but angle between two spin is 70 degree. This is singlet and this is triplet. The surprising fact is that, for example, when molecule is in the J equal 1 state, molecule is rotating in J equal 1 state. At that time, when we take the snapshot of the spin state of hydrogen, the spin quantum state just 1. Only I equal 1 is found when molecule is rotating in J equal 1. I equal 0 state does not found. And when J equal 0 state, when the molecule is rotating in J equal 0 state, I equal 0, I equal 1 state is not found. Similarly, when J equal 2, only spin state I equal 0 is found. I equal 1 state is not found. This is interesting found. This is our result. This is our final result. So J, depending on J, I is determined. When J quantum number are even quantum number of J, I must be 0, which is a singular state. When J is odd, I must be 1, triplet state. Now consider the Raman transition. 0 to 2, 1 to 3. Now I compare the intensity of this transition with this transition. The transition probability of this transition depends on how many molecules are in the J equal 0 state. The intensity of this transition depends on how many molecules are in the J equal 1 state. But these states are coupled to the single state. Single state has only one state. And this state is coupled with triplet state. Triplet state has 3 states. So this transition is stronger than this transition 3 times. Why? This is triplet state. Population must be 3 times larger than the single state. So this transition is stronger than this transition. So odd to odd transition is stronger than the even to even transition. So this is the basis of our Raman alternating spectrum. So this is our final result. I'm going to prove the J quantum number and I quantum number are coupled, is interrelated. But this is very difficult to understand. This is our final result. So to prove this one, let's begin with this simple case. consider this diagram. Electron 1 occupies A orbital with up spin. How can we express this configuration with wave function? The wave function psi 1 looks like this. Maybe expressed using this form. This one called spatial part. This part is called spin part. When you scale this function, you can obtain the spatial distribution of the electron. So this one is called spatial part. This one is that means that electron 1 occupies A orbital. This one means that electron 1 occupies spin up state. For down spin, we use beta. Anyway, this configuration can be expressed using this function. Key point is that wave function consists of two parts, spatial part and spin part. This is very simple. Now consider two electrons. Consider a system of two electrons. A, B. Electron 1 and electron 2 occupies A orbital. Now, electrons with two electrons may be expressed using this function. But the important point is that 1, 2 refers to two electrons. But two electrons are perfect twins. It means they are indistinguishable. They are indistinguishable. There are no physical way to tell which electron is 1, which electron is 2, because they are perfect twins, indistinguishable. So, when I swapping electron 1 and electron 2, 1 and 2, 2 and 1, we cannot tell the difference because 1 and 2 is exactly the same. And what actually measure is the probability. So to express this, the wave function must satisfy this equation. Even if I swapping electron 1 and electron 2, this equation must satisfy because this condition, electron 1 and electron 2 is indistinguishable because they are perfect twins. To solve this equation, we have two solutions. When two particles are indistinguishable, the wave function that describes two electrons must satisfy either of two equations. Now, particles which are called boson satisfy this first equation, and the particle called fermion are known to satisfy this equation. Fermion is defined as the particle whose quantum number, spin quantum number, is half integer. It's defined as fermion, and fermion must satisfy this condition. Boson is defined as the particle whose spin quantum number has integer number, including 0. So this is important point. In mathematics, function that satisfy this condition is called symmetric function. In mathematics, that function that satisfy this condition is called anti-symmetric function. And furthermore, as I said before, this wave function consists of two parts, spatial part times spin part. And if the 1 and 2 refers to electron, the electron is fermion. And as I said before, fermion must satisfy this function must be antisymmetric. This function must be antisymmetric if the particle 1 and particle 2 refers to electron. If particle 1 and particle refers to electron is fermion, and according to quantum mechanics, fermion must satisfy this condition. Wave function must be antisymmetric. And wave function is product of spatial part and spin part. So there are two cases. Spatial part anti-symmetric, spin part is anti-symmetric. This is the first possibility. Second possibility is that spatial part function is anti-symmetric, spin part is symmetric. So there are two possibilities. For the wave function is anti-symmetric. How about this case? One to is boson. If the particle 1 and 2 is boson, the function must be symmetric. And similarly, the function are product of spatial part and spin part. There are two cases. Spin part is symmetric, spatial part is symmetric. Second possibility is that spatial part is anti-symmetric, spin part is also anti-symmetric. This is the condition for the function, wave function, be boson. But in any way, whether or not the wave function is boson or fermion, the spatial part or spin part must be either symmetric or anti-symmetric. There are no other way. Spatial part function, spin part function must be has definite symmetry, which is either symmetric or anti-symmetric. This is a very important condition. Okay. Now let's move on. Consider this case. Now, two electrons occupy A orbital. I'm going to express this situation as a wave function. Now I want to first construct spatial part. In this case, two electrons occupy A orbital. So spatial part is A1, A2. I don't know which electron is 1, which electron is 2. Anyway, electron 1 occupies A orbital and electron 2 also occupies A orbital. This is the spatial part of this wave function, this situation, right? Now I want to check if this function is symmetric or anti-symmetric. Now I'm going to swap 1 and 2. When 1 is replaced by 2, 2 is replaced by 1, we obtain this function. And this function is same as this one. It means that this function is symmetric. So this is okay. Now I'm going to go to spin function. In this case, one electron is spin up, the other is spin down. But I don't know which electron is spin up, which electron is spin down. So there is a two possibility. Electron 1 is up, electron down is spin 2. and electron 2 is spin up, electron 1 is spin down. So we can construct two wave function. But this function and this function is not either symmetric or not symmetric. Why? When I swapping electron 1 and electron 2, this function leads to alpha 2 and beta 1. When I swapping electron 1 and electron 2, we obtain this function. This function is different from this function. So this function is not symmetric. This function is not anti-symmetric. So this function also. So we are going to take linear combination of these two functions to generate two new functions, to generate symmetric function and anti-symmetric function. So first function is just add two functions, and second function is this one. Using these two functions, we are going to take linear combination to generate these two functions. And this function is symmetric function because it is connected by plus. And it is connected by minus, so this function is anti-symmetric function. So we construct spatial function. One spatial function. We construct two spatial spin function. In final step, we are going to combine spatial function and spin function to generate total wave function, which is anti-symmetric, right? But spatial function is fixed at symmetric. Then this spatial function is should combine with this function to generate anti-symmetric total wave function. Understand? This is symmetric. This should be anti-symmetric to generate anti-symmetric total wave function. So this spatial part should combine with this anti-symmetric spin function. So for this configuration, the wave function is product of spatial part and spin part. These two functions must be combined to generate this diagram. This is our result. Okay, now let's move on. Now the electron is promoted to d orbital. Okay. Similarly, this wave function are product of spatial part and spin part. I'm going to construct first spin part. As I said before, there are four combinations. There are two possibilities, up spin and down spin for a orbital, electron in a orbital. There are two possibilities in up spin and down spin in electron for b orbital. So there are four combinations. The first combination is both electrons are up spin, and both electrons are down spin. And the other choice is that one electron is up, the other is down. But we don't know which electron is up, which electron is down. So there are two possibilities. Electron 1 is up, electron 2 is down. And the other possibility is that electron 2 is up, electron 1 is down. So there are four possibilities. Now I'm going to check if this function is symmetric or anti-symmetric. This function is definitely symmetric. So this function is okay. This is symmetric. This function is also symmetric. Right? So this is okay. But as we said before, these two functions is not symmetric. This is not anti-symmetric. So we are going to take linear combination of these two functions to generate two functions. plus minus. Then this function is symmetric, and this function is anti-symmetric. So we construct 4 spin functions. So spin part is completed. Now we are going to move spatial part. One electron in A orbital, the other electron in B orbital. So spatial part. A1, B2, O, A2, B1. But this function is not symmetric and it is not anti-symmetric. So we are going to take linear combination of these two functions to generate two functions. Plus and minus. This function is symmetric, and this function is anti-symmetric. So we construct spatial part. Now in final step, we are going to combine these two functions to generate total wave function, which is anti-symmetric. Now take spatial part, this one, symmetric part. When the spatial part is this one must combine this anti-symmetric wave function, because symmetric spatial part must combine anti-symmetric spin function to generate anti-symmetric total wave function. So this one must be combined with this one. And when the spatial part is this one, which is anti-symmetric spatial part, must combine with these 3 symmetric spin function. This one, this anti-symmetric spatial function must combine with 3 symmetric spin function. Okay, this one must be combined with this one. These 3 states constitute triplet state, and this one is constitute singlet state. This is our result. So we construct 4 states. This one combined with 3 triplet state. This one combined with singlet state. So please keep in mind that this is triplet state, this is singlet state. You must remember that. This is triplet state, this is singlet state. What is the symmetry of this one? Triplet state is symmetry function. Triplet state is anti-symmetry function. You must remember this one. This is the spin function. This is a spin function. Spin function. Triplet spin function is symmetry function. Singlet spin function is anti-symmetry function. You must remember this one. This is very important, isn't it? Okay. Now let's move on. Now, our final project. Now I'm going to consider H2 molecule. H2 molecule consists of 2 nucleus and 2 electrons. Now the wave function which describes H2 molecule takes this form. this coordinate represents the position of electrons. This coordinate represents the position of nucleus, right? So this wave function represents the wave function of our H2 molecule. In first step, I'm gonna introduce Born-Oppenheim approximation. According to Born-Oppenheim approximation, the wave function can be expressed as product of electronic wave function and nuclear wave function. In second step, chemistry don't like this coordinate, this 6 coordinate. Chemistry don't like this coordinate. They transform this coordinate to another coordinate. In it, there is a central mass x, y, z. This is new coordinate, and there is a fourth coordinate which represents the distance between two atoms. This is the fourth coordinate, and what's the remaining two coordinate? Is the angle theta and phi that represents the orientation of this molecule. We can integrate each variable. This one corresponds to the translational motion. This one represents the vibrational motion. This one represents the rotational motion. So this one can be further broke down. This function can be expressed as a product of three functions: translational function, vibrational function, rotational function. Now, all of these functions we already covered. This function is actually three-dimensional particle in a box wave function, same as this one. You see this one. This function is exactly same as the particle in a three-dimensional box. This function is vibrational. We have three quantum number, n, x, and y, and z, because we have three variables, n, x, y, z. So we have three variables. And this is the vibrational wave function. We already familiar with this vibrational wave function. It looks like this. This is harmonic potential. This is the vibrational wave function, which looks like this. And we have one vibrational quantum number, v, because we have one coordinate. Now, this is the rotational wave function. So we have rotational energy already. Ej equal Bj J plus U, similar to this one. And this wave function has two variables, theta pi. So this function has two quantum number, J, Mj. This function is exactly same as atomic orbital. You know, where n equal 1, only m equal s orbital. When n equal 1, we have 3 p orbital, right? m equal 1, 0 minus 1. N equal 2, we have 5 d orbital. So L is same as J. L is same as Mj. So rotational function consists of have two containable j and j because the wave function has two variables theta and phi. So anyway, these functions are we already covered in the class. Okay, this is our wave function. So let's see. This wave function is finally this is our result, but importantly, now this proton and this proton is indistinguishable. So when you swap these two protons, A to B, B to A, the wave function does not change, right? So when you swap these two variables, XA to XB, XB to YA, the wave function does not change. So this function must be anti-symmetric because this is fermion. This function must be fermion under the exchange of these two particles. So this function must be anti-symmetric. This is the result from quantum mechanics. These two particles is indistinguishable. Furthermore, these two particles is fermion. So this wave function must be anti-symmetric under the exchange of these two particles. Now, when these two particles exchange, what happens to this coordinate? XYZ. XYZ does not change. This is the central mass. Central mass does not change. It stays identical. What happens to this variable Q? Q. When these two particles interchange, Q does not change, right? So it remains same. But the problem is this one. In this case, theta pi change. Why? Now first I'm going to define theta as following. I'm going to define theta as the axis between G and A, HA. This is the definition of angle theta. Now I'm going to swap HA and HB. Then this is HA, this is HB. Then what is the angle? Theta. Now this is angle theta, right? So angle change. So in this case, theta transform to pi minus theta. This one is equal to pi minus theta because this is pi. This one equal to pi minus theta. Large XYZ does not change. Q does not change. But theta transform to pi minus theta when proton A and proton B swap. Similarly, pi also change. Transform to pi plus pi. This is our result. So I'm going to check how this function change under the transformation theta pi, like this. But this function, as I said before, is just atomic orbital. You already familiar with atomic orbitals. L equal 0, s orbital. L equal 1, p orbital. This orbital is exactly as same as j equal 0 orbital. This orbital is exactly the same as j equal 0 rotational wave function. This orbital is exact 아이고 same as j equal 2 orbital. Now in this case, this point is called theta pi, and theta pi transform to pi 빼기 theta, pi plus pi. The point is exactly this point. The inversion to the center of origin. So as you can see, in s orbital, in which j equal 0 rotational function, the function value does not change. Same sign. But in this case, this point is theta pi, and this point corresponds to pi 빼기 theta, pi plus pi. In this case, plus sign transform to minus sign. So this function is anti-symmetry under the exchange of two particles. This is symmetry. And in this case, this is theta pi. This is pi theta, pi plus theta. This one sign does not change. So this function is also symmetric function. So in this case, I say again, when two particles swap, the wave function must change its sign. This is the definition of fermion. But even though when two particles swap, this function does not change. This function does not change. But this function may change or may not change. It depends on quantum number j. How change? When j equal even, symmetry does not change. When j equal odd, anti-symmetry change. How do you know that? This one. This is the actual rotational wave function. This is the actual rotational wave function. It depends on symmetry, depends on quantum number j. When quantum number j is odd or even, the symmetry is symmetric, does not change. But when quantum number j is odd, the function value changes sign, which is anti-symmetry. Understand? So this is our final result. So please remember this one. The symmetry of this function depends on quantum number j. When j is even, symmetric, j is odd, anti-symmetric. And now we are going to add one more function. In this wave function, there are no such thing as spin. This particle has spin. So in addition to this wave function, we are going to attach spin function here. In this wave function, there are no information on the spin state of this function. So we are going to add spin function here. But as we know, spin function, as for spin function, there are two functions. Singular state triplet state, right? But as I mentioned earlier, spin function, two kinds of spin function, triplet spin function, singlet spin function. Triplet spin function is symmetric. Triplet spin function is anti-symmetric. Remember that. Triplet spin function is symmetric. Singlet spin function is anti-symmetric. So I'm going to add this spin function. Here, spin function, singlet spin function is anti-symmetric, triplet spin function is symmetric.